What's up, everyone? Welcome to Ashley Talks Movies, and welcome to my review of Eternities, the new romantic comedy from director David Frayne. And in this world, everyone or every soul gets 1 week to decide where they want to spend eternity. When Joan, played by Elizabeth Olsen, arrives in the afterlife, she finds two men waiting for her. Her husband, Larry, played by Miles Teller, and Luke, played by Callum Turner, her first love who died young, cutting their time together short. Joan is now faced with a difficult choice of not only where she wants to spend eternity, but also who's going to spend it with her. Before I jump into the review, if you'd like to support the channel, there are a couple of ways that you can do that. Make sure you subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Also, join the discussion, jump into the comments, and share your thoughts about the movie.
Larry!
What do you mean, Larry? We were together a week ago.
Well, a lot has happened in a week. You died, I died, I just been reunited with both of my dead husbands, and I have to pick where to spend eternity.
Eternity is an imaginative rom-com with a story that's emotional, romantic, dramatic, and at times, really hilarious. Elizabeth Olsen anchors this movie as a woman who's faced with what seems like an impossible choice. She does a really great job at portraying someone who's flustered and overwhelmed by having to make a decision about who she's going to spend all of eternity with. I also thought she did a wonderful job at playing an old soul in a young body, because even though Joan died an old woman, she looks like a younger version of herself in the afterlife, because in this world, you turn back to the age you were when you were happiest. Miles Teller is very good as Larry, who was married to Joan for 65 years. Teller also does a really good job at playing with the old soul, young body setup in this movie, portraying Larry as a lovable crank who's determined to prove himself worthy to spend the afterlife with his wife. And then you have Callum Turner, who delivers a solid performance as Luke, who has been waiting for Joan in the afterlife for 67 years. Luke is charming and romantic, and Turner brings a quiet confidence to the role. Luke is often described as perfect by the other characters in the movie, but he seems to really hate that label. What I liked is how this movie set up the love triangle. This movie works really hard to present both men as good choices for Joan, and never really shows either of them to be a villain or an antagonist. And so that makes Joan's choice even harder, and it keeps the audience guessing as to who Joan is going to choose. Also want to give a shout out to Divine Joy Randolph, who shows up in a supporting role as one of the afterlife coordinators who helps the recently departed decide where they want to spend eternity. She's really great, and she brings a nice balance of humor and heart to the movie. Eternity has some really creative world building. Most of the story takes place in something called the Junction, which looks like a cross between a retro train terminal and a hotel convention center. It's basically populated with kiosks that advertise different worlds that people can decide to spend eternity. So you have yacht worlds or capitalist world. There's even a mall world. And I love the look of this place, from the retro design to the colors and even how each of the worlds were depicted. And this whole setup, the different worlds, the junction, really provide many of the visual gags in this movie. Now, this movie does start to lose its way in the final act, and I don't think it quite stuck the landing. I do think audiences will be divided on the choice that Joan makes. I'm not going to talk too much about the ending because I don't do spoilers, but I wasn't really a fan of the ending. Mostly because, based on everything this movie was building up to, I thought it was going to go in a different direction, a bolder direction. Also, Joan's constant indecision on how she wants to spend eternity and which man she's going to choose became really repetitive and at times very exhausting, to the point where you get to the end, it kind of makes her choice feel less impactful. But again, that's just based on how I felt about the ending. Despite that, I did enjoy Eternity. It's a movie that made me laugh and made me think, and it poses some really interesting questions about love and life and the afterlife. It's a movie that you shouldn't think too hard about the logic within it, because if you do, it doesn't really make sense. But if you go into it with an open mind, I think you'll really enjoy it. So those are my thoughts on Eternity, which is out in theaters right now. Have you seen it, or do you plan on seeing it? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. So that does it for me, everyone. I'll see you next time. And of course, thanks for watching.